Okay, it's the afternoon of Sunday, May 28th, 2023. We just finished with the St. Mary's Bazaar Parade. I should be up on the bazaar grounds having a cheeseburger or something, but an old schoolmate of mine captured me before not a classmate, she's much older, she's a full 2 years ahead of me in school. Captured me and said, I know you weren't at the Mass last night, but we'd like to get some publicity. And I know in reading last week's St. Mary's Church Bulletin, it mentioned that the Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, is that the correct name?
Perfect.
Perfect.
12 years of having that, being reminded of that. We're celebrating 200 years today. So I'll let everybody, starting with Sister Bonita, introduce themselves and what their role is, and then we'll get into the history that you want to talk about and so on. But first we'll get everybody's name on the record here.
Hello, I'm Sister Bonita Cody. I'm a graduate of St. Mary's for 12 years, as well as a daughter of Charity of the Sacred Heart. I got the idea of checking in with 4 of the major parishes that we've been with through the 200 years and telling the parishioners of those areas that how much we appreciate all that their spirituality and all they did with us through all those years.
Okay, we'll get into that, but we want to make sure we get everybody.
My name is Sister Juanita Durgan. I am the delegate of the Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. We are small. We are 17 sisters now. At one time we were 190 something.
I think in our heyday we were 80, around 80.
180.
No, not 180, 80.
Only-
I think.
Oh,
I'm
we have
not
to-
sure.
Well, we're
We'll
not
have to look
sure.
into the
We'll
archives
look into
here.
that.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's quite a discrepancy here.
It is.
Okay.
Marianne.
Oh,
Marianne.
I am Sister Marianne Gore. I was taught by our sisters quite a few years ago in Newport, Vermont. This is my community, the Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. We are happy to be having this celebration of our founding 200 years ago. And this, Newport, Vermont, and Champlain, New York were key places at the beginning of our history in the U.S. I am from Newport, Vermont, but I have spent more time in life here in Champlain, St. Mary's, and the surrounding area. And I'm still very connected to families here. So our even though the school has closed here at St. Mary's, the memories and the legacy certainly lives on.
My name is Sister Elaine Voyer. I also am from the Newport area by birth. However, I spent 13 years here in St. Mary's Parish, both as teacher and principal of the school, elementary school, K through 6. These are wonderful years that I'll never forget. I think being here at the bazaar is a wonderful experience because this became a key event in the support of our school. I mean, we made thousands of dollars on these bazaars. But along with what Sister Bonita just said, what lives in our hearts is the spirit of the people of Champlain and Rouse's Point while we were here. It's a wonderful place to serve, and we're happy to be here. And we came in 1906, don't forget.
I know that.
Yeah.
I wrote the book in 2006.
You can give our history, Calvin.
I might do that. I might go through the book after this year and just
Uh-huh.
show some pictures we had from 17 years ago already.
Yeah.
So 2 of you are from the Newport area, and I know we got other people here in town. That Norm Bono came here at St. Mary's because
Just ahead of us in school.
yeah,
Well, me.
and then Rocket Ron Rivard, I think
Yes.
Ron Rivard was from
Right.
that area. So
That's right. Yeah.
so more than just the sisters moved over here to
Came back.
Champlain. Yeah,
Right.
but you were a Cooperville girl, right?
Definitely. And Sister Rosina Bayshard.
My cousin,
Right, yeah. And she's in Littleton right now.
is she?
Right. So, but she didn't come this weekend. Yeah.
Well, tell her I missed her.
But when in some of my readings in preparing for this, I learned that the Coopersville Parish was 40 years ahead of the Champlain
Oh, yes,
Parish.
this was
That was,
the ones that planted the seeds here, yes.
right, Coopersville got it started, and then they helped out Champlain's foundation
Yep.
as a parish.
According to what I've heard was he helped out Shazy first, then from Shazy to St. Mary's, and then,
Mhm.
you know, so yeah, there were a few of these parishes that were laying the ground, and they'd have priests coming across from the
From
border.
Sweden. This one came from Sweden that founded Coopersville, one of them. Mhm.
He probably wasn't French.
No.
And just on a side note, at St. Joseph's Church, where my mother was a Trudeau, that was her home parish, and my grandfather was buried there, and my grandmother. But if you look at you talk about Rosina Bayshard, if you look at the plaques inside that church, about half of the names in there are Bayshards.
Bayshard.
Also, if you go through all the school registers, the name that appears the most in the history of that school, St. Mary's, is Bayshard.
Yeah.
May not have been the graduates. I'm trying to remember if it was. 'Cause I did do that. I think it might have been Bayshards that were number one as far as graduates too, but not
Mhm.
everybody
Yeah,
who
could
went to
be.
school ended up
Possible.
graduating. But
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure when I did
Yes.
that 2006 100-year history, they even beat the LaFontaines here from Champlain. They were, I think it was the Bayshards who were number one.
They were number
Yeah.
one.
The
definitely.
dominant family name,
Yes.
for sure.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I'm related to the Bayshards. Are you?
No, I'm
No,
not.
I don't know how you escaped that.
There's no Codys in the area. Just in Shazy we had Codys.
Right.
Leo Cody
Right.
and Frank.
And Norman.
No,
Father?
no, not Father Cody.
He
No,
wasn't from
there
there?
was no
He ended
relation.
up.
No.
That was his last parish for about 30 years. But
Right, that was coincidence.
Yeah. Okay, and you're from New Hampshire?
Yes, Milford, New Hampshire, born in New Hampshire. Never knew the sisters until I started looking for a place to enter. And I heard, what called to me was their project of evangelization and bringing.
Just like that, the bells start chiming.
Yeah, yeah. It was like I walked in and I saw a plaque that said something about revealing the love of God to the neighbor, to the person next to you. And I said, well, that's me. That's my spirituality, and it's been wonderful. I came to visit here, this place, many times, but I'm not a product of this area at all. No.
Okay.
No.
Did you come when it was the old convent or when the new convent was built?
It had to be the new convent, because I don't remember an old convent.
I never knew it either.
No, it had to be
These
the
kids.
new
I
I'm
did.
too young.
I did.
Yeah,
We did.
yeah.
We went to the other side.
My
She means the other side of the street, not.
No.
She didn't move to the other side. There. She
No,
had
the other
switched teams.
side for music classes or
Oh,
to
yeah.
get a cookie
Oh,
from
yeah,
the
St.
kitchen.
Mary's. Yeah, we'd have to come down there. And,
Mm-hmm.
Yes. What was her name? The,
Alexi?
Sister Mary St. John?
Alexi?
no, there was a local woman that was in there too. I can't remember her name. It
Oh,
was a cook there. Because Francis Seymour and I in sixth grade, we'd
Mhm.
empty the garbage and she'd give us each a cookie.
Yeah, that was the treat.
What a reward.
That's why everybody wanted to go over to the sisters' side.
You know, Sister Alexis ran the cafeteria. And, yeah.
Mhm.
Okay, so why are we here, Bonnie? Why did you? Excuse me, I gotta say I've known her for 60 years.
Yeah,
here,
you
so
can't switch.
Sister Bonita, what did you want to tell us about? I know last week I wasn't able to be here, and Judy says I can't wave my hand like this, so
Yeah, but you do.
I do. So
Well, it's
last
not
week-
so much about
last night
our
I wasn't here,
history
but-
and what we brought to Champlain, but it was a partnership. You know, both in Newport, but in Champlain, there was a warmth in this area. And the people were very open. Of course, in the beginnings, the sisters didn't have money when they came from France. So in order to support school, they'd end up bringing some of their products from home, the garden products. You know, they'd pay tuition with potatoes. So, you know, and then when we opened the boarding school, that also was a bit of financial support, as the children needed, even local children needed care. And so that was important. It's also what the peoples of Champlain and Rouse's Point brought to us.
Okay, now we're talking, of course,
And our appreciation for that is really
and that's why you're
Was-
making your little tour.
what was the focus of where my idea came from, yeah.
Now, we're talking, the sister's coming here in 1906, but you're 200 years old. If you put all your years together, about 50, 50, 50 here, it'd be 200 years.
107 with Champlain.
Would it be over 200, do you think?
Well, I don't know if it'd be 200, but about
No.
close.
4 times 50 is 200, so if you're, unless you're averaging 50 years here, it's
Well,
gonna be
right
over
now
200.
I'm 60 years. So add 10, so maybe it's close.
It's
Could be
close.
close.
It's close.
Okay, so who wants to tell me about the early history
Okay.
from 200 years ago?
Well, I don't know if I can, okay.
Not from personal
Let's start
experience.
with our founder,
Okay,
Father Catrou, Jean-Maurice Catrou. Came from a very small parish, like most of the parishes we serve, in France, of course. It was after the war, and the country was desolate, both physically and spiritually. And Father Catrou was a pastor. He was 28 years old.
okay, this is, you're talking
Our
about,
founder.
yeah, in France, so we're
in
talking
France.
about
I'm talking about
after
the
Napoleon
very beginning.
and
The
all
be-
those, Marie Antoinette and all those people here, right?
Yeah.
That was the war you were
I'm
talking.
talking about the beginning of the 200 years.
Right, that was the war you're talking about in
Yes.
France. Right.
Father
So just so everybody watching knows what we're talking about.
And so when you think of a man, a priest, maybe 2 years ordination, he was 28 years old, he decided he wanted to do something about his parishioners and the poor people, spiritually and physical. So he looked for a woman who he could choose to work with him to found a religious congregation. And he found Rogier, who was a very pious lady and a very faith-filled lady. Between the two of them, they discerned a whole year before they actually founded our congregation. They both agreed to the name, Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And when she took her first vows, that became the birth date of our congregation on December 18, 1823. So this year, of course, 2023 is our 200th year of existence. Now, I think, the Sacred Heart of Jesus was the goal, that we imitate the Sacred Heart of Jesus. And from there, the congregation grew. By the death of our founders, there were already 129 communities founded in France. It spread very fast. And Sister's comment about how we were received here, I think our spirituality of the Sacred Heart is what resonates in the hearts of people. And I think these people here in Champlain, it really resonated. They accepted us with open arms, and we were just kinship. We were kin people right from the beginning. And a significant character of us here is we went right into the homes. We became very close to the people, their families, their struggles, their joys. So it became one big family. And I think that's what the Sacred Heart does. It brings people together in love and compassion.
Okay, let me jump in here. We're talking 100 years ago now in here, we're talking people from France coming over, because the first original sisters who came over here were from France. But this was a Catholic community of French Canadians
Sure.
in Champlain.
Exactly.
So they spoke the language. So it wasn't like they're coming over here and needing interpreters.
Yeah.
This was French Canadian heritage here in Champlain, so they could speak the language. And speaking of French, now I want you to say the name of your order in French.
In French, Fille de la Charité du Sacré-Cœur de Jésus.
Is that correct?
But we know that there is a difference between the French from France and the French from the Canadian dialects
Oh yeah,
here.
just like British.
So, but they had to teach in English. Now, they came from France knowing only French, but they're teaching English students who have English French in their homes.
Right.
But the purpose was to teach school, so
Right.
they had to learn English.
So many times they had to learn how to teach the lesson for the next day in English.
So they
That's
were
pretty challenging.
doing
when
double
you think
duty here.
about
That's
it.
right.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
exactly.
And you talk about interpreters, they needed interpreters. Of course, in Newport, that's always that's the same situations here in Champlain.
French.
We're right on the Canadian
Right.
border. But they could find people that knew both French and English.
I
That
grew up in Newport.
really helped them.
That's the story. Mrs. Plouffe, who lived right in the area, everybody went to her house before my time to learn how to teach the lesson to the children the next day.
That's incredible when you
amazing.
think about it. And look how far we've come.
Amazing.
Now, Plouffe, now, you young ladies are too young to remember, but I'm sure you remember the Plouffe family on CBC TV.
That's right, yeah.
I remember them.
Uh-huh.
I may look young, but I'm not young.
We don't.
Pepe No and Capucin.
Oh, yeah, Pepino was my favorite.
Goodness.
And Seraphin.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, because up here, our first station was half French, half English out of Montreal.
Early television.
And then, I can't remember if it was Channel 2 or Channel 6, then they split, and Channel 2 became French, and Channel
That's
6
right.
became English.
That's right, yeah.
So we
Yeah.
grew up, some of us, who, when we got our TV, when I first
Yeah.
started, I didn't have a TV, but
Yeah,
when we
It's
did,
true.
it was
yeah, I
a
remember
lot of
that.
French Canadians yes,
Yeah.
in the
Channel 2 was always French.
Plouffe family.
Yeah,
I have no idea what they're saying, but they seemed like they had a lot
I
of fun.
know, but we followed.
yeah.
My parents knew, so that's all that mattered. Okay, so 200 years ago, 129 provinces, that's what you call it?
Communities.
Communities.
Communities
One
in
province,
France.
right, in
By
France,
the death
yeah.
of Father Catrou in 1848, I believe, there was 128 communities already established in France, and it started in 23. But it spread very fast,
Very obviously.
very fast.
And that was
yeah.
before Facebook.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I know.
Absolutely. And then after the French Revolution, of course, and the Combes Law, they closed all of Catholic schools. Sisters didn't. They wanted to relinquish all Catholic sisters. So, but they agreed to take the habits off. They taught in the public schools, but they were still sisters.
Uh-huh.
They kept their identity among themselves. They couldn't advertise it in public.
And that's how we came to the United States.
Right, so I don't, I think it's in that book, I'll grab it when we're done here and,
Mhm.
and get the story of the priest that contacted the
Father
sisters of-
Chagnon.
Father Chagnon, who's
Mhm.
buried right outside
That's right.
our door
That's
here.
right.
That's right.
He was determined to reopen the Catholic schools after Mr. St. Maxim's
Yeah, it was across
was
the
no
road.
able to
What
continue.
we used to call the meat locker across the road,
Yeah,
the
that's
building fell
right.
down.
It had
That's
closed
right.
about 4 years, and then the sisters came in 1906,
Mhm.
but the school was built in 1909,
Okay.
the first school.
All right, Sister Juanita, you are, what's your title?
I am the delegate of this
Representative.
representative,
That used to be, the head person used to be what?
a provincial.
Provincial. I think my cousin Rosie was a provincial one
Yes,
time.
she was.
That's right.
She was.
Did such a heck of a good job, they
Yeah.
replaced her, yeah.
Pass on the baton.
Yeah.
You won't let her see this, right? So, down to how many, 17 you said, 17?
Yes,
Mhm.
And I
Yes.
imagine some of those 17 aren't in the best of health.
Average
Some of
age
them
is 84.
Average age is 84.
84,
Median age, I
yes.
should say, not average.
Median.
Median age is 84.
So when you
Of
throw
our
in new youngsters,
Yeah,
Our youngsters
we are the young
80.
ones.
Let's just say we're senior citizens.
so do you have any houses left? I know you had a convent here and you had a place
We have
in
Mount
Littleton.
Sacred Heart. Where is the primary building right now
In Littleton.
in Littleton, New Hampshire?
Is there a building that the sisters own or how?
Yes,
Right.
yes.
It's the administration house for the congregation in the United States.
Okay.
Okay? And
Yeah.
So you're still part of excuse my hand there, Judy. Still
Internet.
part of an international
Mhm.
Yeah,
organization.
Right.
Yeah, that's important to remember, that we're an international congregation. So we have sisters in France, we have sisters in Madagascar, We have sisters in the southern part of Africa, Lesotho, and the Republic of
The
South
Zulu
Africa.
land, wasn't that place that?
Lesotho.
Now
Just-
called Lesotho and
Yeah.
Republic of South Africa. We have sisters on the west coast of Africa, Benin and Togo and Burkina Faso. We have sisters in Brazil.
Canada.
And believe it or not, the head of
Canada.
our congregation worldwide is a sister from Tahiti.
Wow.
And she's our Superior General.
Canada.
The only
Forgot
Tahitian,
Canada.
well, she's not Tahitian, she's, I never think of the island. One of the islands close to it, but she lived in Tahiti.
Okay,
So she's really from the French Polynesian.
okay.
Yeah.
And Bonnie just mentioned
Canada,
Canada also,
yeah,
yes.
So,
proximity.
Yeah.
Although it seems sad that we're down to 17, we're not giving up hope. We still live with hope because we have sisters in so many other countries. And they continue to grow in the South. We continue to grow in the Southern Hemisphere. Northern Hemisphere is kind of stalled out. Not too many young women are entering religious congregations any longer.
I think, excuse me, Juanita, I think we have to note here, religious congregations as we have known them, we were in convents, we were in groups,
Mhm.
etc. There are new forms of religious life that are evolving, which is not our style, if you wish, but it's still religious life, and that's where the hope lies.
Yes.
Because even if we in convents, covenantal community life no longer exists, it exists in other forms. So I think it's important to note that our style may be going out of style, but new congregations are developing and evolving, which is a strong sense of religious life, religious commitment, religious vows, etc. That is still very strong in the United States. But many of the former types of congregations are going out of existence. But because we're international, we don't have that fear. It'll be a long time before
Yeah.
we don't
Right.
longer exist.
Right, because you got,
Because we belong to a
Strong
big
elsewhere.
international family.
And many of our ministries at the beginning too was also in many congregations, not just the French ones, were to serve the immigrants that were coming off Staten Island, for instance, And so in that, there was a decrease in that. Of course, now we have a lot about immigration. But when that declined, the need for religious Catholic schools and religious doing that diminished. And then there was a lot of increase in lay leadership in the church. So they also did many of the ministry and works that the congregations were doing.
I think we have to note that religious congregations seem to take on the greatest need of their era. And as Sister Bonita was saying, in the beginnings it was immigration, and then we needed to establish schools, clinics, health care, all of that was the needs of the time. Now, what are the needs of today? And that's where you're going to find religious women. How many, LCWR, which is our leadership conference nationally, calls on religious women to go to centers where there are immigrants that need help. So we look in society, where are the poor, where are the greatest needs? That's where you're going to find the religious women.
or hospice, like we have Sister
Exactly.
Mary Ann.
Exactly.
Exactly. Hospice work, yeah, that's a big one.
People who choose to live home and end their life surrounded by their loved ones. And spiritual care is a big part of hospice. And it goes way back to the early beginnings of our community. We always had care of the sick. That was always there. And it has a new form today. We're not running hospitals as they have in our Canadian province before, but we're going into people's homes and companioning them on the life journey, the end of their life.
Okay, I don't want to rush you people,
No.
but Sister Bonita was never fibbed or exaggerated to me before, said you had to hit the road by 2 o'clock. It's 1:36 right now.
You said 2?
Uh-oh.
Well,
You gotta
because we want to get up also at the bazaar
Wanna get the bazaar,
and
right.
meet people, and
Right.
that was
She
one
means
of
2
our.
o'clock for you, Calvin.
Oh, oh. Okay.
I would like to say that
Yes, I want you to-
what Bonnie mentioned in the
See what you
parishes is that that when you look at the fabric of our life, if you want to pick that up, when you look at the tapestry or the fabric that we are in the United States, this area, Ross's Point, Champlain, are very well woven in. You're part of us. When we look at ourselves and we celebrate who we are in this 200 years, we are celebrating you because we wouldn't be who we are without you.
Yeah.
Your graciousness, your invitation to gather us towards you in the beginning times, all of this has made us part of who we are.
Yeah, we
And-
weren't founded just once. We were
Right.
founded every time we came to a new area, and that blossomed.
Yes.
And then, you know, the needs of another area.
Sort of Johnny Appleseeds here,
That's
planting the
right.
seeds
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Exactly, yes.
And even in
Thank you for the
situations
time
where,
reminder.
even in situations where schools have closed in the various areas we've been, the connection with the people has continued, and that has remained very strong,
Right.
and we're very grateful for that.
yes, even though many of us have gotten older, people who were here when you folks were here,
That's right.
So they
I can't
recognize you and-
believe
That's what we said. You know, the building, the St. Mary's building
oh,
and the St. Mary's convent burned, but the tradition and legacy is there, the memories last.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
now the original convent was, of course, torn down, but the new convent is still there, it's the phone company now.
That's right, yeah,
Right.
that transition.
But I think it was,
Yeah. And then the stone building convent, don't forget. That's where we were at the end of our time in Champlain.
oh.
The little
right,
stone
on Main
building.
Street,
Right.
yes, yes,
That was
yeah,
my last convent in
That's right.
Champlain, yeah.
yes, the building is still there, yes.
It's still there, yeah.
Yes, yes. So are there things here that you feel we need to say right now that we want to, you're not going to go home and say, slap your head and say, oh, what, why didn't I mention that? I want to make sure you all get that chance to say that, that's something you want. I think what Sister Juanita just said about your roots and feeling the connection here in all the communities
Mhm.
you've served.
I think what I want to say is my greatest joy is that the Spirit works, as Father was saying this morning. He works through each one of us. He works through our groups. He works through the people that we are serving. And I think my greatest joy is that whatever the people received from the Spirit from our last 200 years, they're going to pass that on to their children and their children and children. It's a spirit that's going to last. It's not dead. It's going to live on through the future generations. And I think a lot of our people, students and families, etc., are doing just that. They're passing on this love of the Sacred Heart, of the love of God, this open heart, as we say today. Instead of Sacred Heart, we say open heart. They're passing it on to their children, and that's my greatest joy. That it's, and that's my hope,
That it continues
that it continues.
for generations to come.
Exactly.
All right.
And it's always a great gift to connect with the families and the individuals and families that we have known and loved. And they have been so gracious in opening their homes and their hearts and their life stories to us. And it's a connection that's just going to go on and flourish from one generation to the other. And they feel connected to us, but through us to the sisters they knew years ago. So many times when I'm in a home and they bring up beloved sisters who taught them or with kindness came to their home to minister to their needs, and it's been wonderful to see that it lives on in the families and the stories of their life, and how much they have given to us by their acceptance, the connections of faith that they are living, and they're inspirations to us in many ways because they sacrificed a lot over the years. for the good of the school and their children. And they put many things aside in their own personal life to get involved with the activities that supported the school and our ability to teach these children and care for their families. And we're talking about this early sisters making sacrifices, but so did the families here. And yet there's so much joy in that because we have a kinship and we're like one big extended family. We are related through the love of the Sacred Heart to each other.
Before I let you start talking, do these ladies jump when you talk? Since you're the boss, they always?
I am loved and I am respected. I don't expect anybody to jump when I speak.
But if they do, it's okay.
Yeah.
Hope there's something, if I haven't ruined your thought here. Go.
No, I'm just thankful, so thankful to be a part of this congregation and to have had an opportunity to visit Champlain and Ross's Point. Like I said earlier, this is not my home, this is not a place I'm familiar with, but the people are very welcoming and open and a lot of smiles, and thank you all for being so gracious.
Do your congregation still have a spot in Islamont? I know you used to have a summer
Oh, yes.
vacation
Yeah.
spot
Yes.
there in Islamont. You still have
Yes,
that?
we do.
We still do.
It's a nice place to utilize it.
Exactly.
Yes, exactly.
I'll just add that one of the women this morning after the 8 o'clock mass came up to me and said, kind of in a whisper, "I just have to tell you that my 12 years at St. Mary's made me who I am, and I appreciated all of they got from the sisters and my education." So that, that kind of put it all together
Exactly.
in recognizing that gift.
That's wonderful.
Yep.
Mhm.
Okay. So we can leave it there unless somebody
I
has.
think so.
Yeah, and we're gonna send me some photos you said you had.
Right.
And also you had a
Text.
a text that was not able to be at mass last night for.
Well, I have it,
Medical
I have
reasons,
it in
but-
the car.
Yeah,
Have it
that's
in the
what I,
car,
or I
But that's
can,
way
we
up
can
there.
email it, we'll email it.
Yeah.
Oh,
We got
okay, we'll
this
email it to you.
This
Bill.
interweb stuff here.
We have emails now.
Yes. So I'll give you my email, and then
Sure.
when I put this video online, I'll send you the video link, and then you can share it with
Okay,
all 17 of your
Wonderful, okay.
cohorts. Okay.
Okay.
tune in.
Yes.
All right. Thank you very much. We've been here at St. Mary's Rectory. Judy's been running the camera. We've been talking to 4 members of these Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus, who are this year celebrating their 200th anniversary, and they're going around to the communities where they served and letting them know how much they appreciate what the communities have done for them over the years. And this has been one of their stops here at St. Mary's, and it's bazaar time, and a great time to be here.
Mhm.
Sister Bonita did provide me with a copy of the letter that she read at the various masses that they attended in this bicentennial year, 1823 to 2023, of the Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. We come before you today to express our sincere gratitude to you and to each person our lives have touched during these past 200 years. We were sent forth to proclaim the love of the open heart of Jesus on American soil, and you responded with open arms and hearts to this grace message. We'll be jumping from around in the letter, only reading maybe 10% of it. The order was founded in 1823, and when the founder, Father Jean-Maurice Caudreau, passed in 1863, there were 128 established communities throughout France. In 1904, under the Combes Law in France, all Catholic schools were closed and all sisters had to be secularized, which means they were no longer nuns. Many taught in secular schools but remained sisters in their private lives. Some refused to be secularized and looked for an occasion to serve in other lands. At the request of Father Antoine Claremont, pastor of St. Mary's, Star of the Sea in Newport, Vermont, in 1905, 4 sisters sought permission of their superior general to come to America. After much discernment and hesitation on the part of the Superior General, Mother Rose of St. Marie, and many of the sisters, they were given permission to set sail on a perilous journey. With the blessing of Mother Rose of St. Marie, these 4 sisters were given a statue of the Sacred Heart with the mission, go and make the Sacred Heart known and loved on American soil. Via Montreal, Canada, this first group of French sisters landed in Newport, Vermont by train on October 24th, 1905. And then skipping ahead to Champlain, New York, in 1906, where Sister Aline of Saint Laurent responded to a request to serve in St. Mary's Parish. Sister Aline passed in 1911 and is buried in St. Mary's Cemetery. We'll show you the covers of a book we'll be reading from shortly, but before we do that, we're going to move to the Town of Champlain 2000 book, which was actually published in 2002. But there's a couple of pages devoted to the Daughters of the Church. It mentions Father Chagnon and his appeal for help, and Sister Aline of Saint Laurent, foundress and first superior of the Daughters, came to Champlain with Sister Saint Edgard to open the school in the beginning of 1906. The sisters moved to the former Dr. Hackett residence, and I'm not sure if we can quite see it in this. We see the school, and we see just to the right, we see the edge of the convent. We'll have a picture of the Hackett residence later on. An addition was added to the convent to provide housing for boarding students to aid the sisters' financial difficulties in 1920. An annex was added to the convent to accommodate additional boarding students in 1932. And we will show the sisters praying here at the grave in Champlain of Sister Saint Aline of Saint Laurent. Chances are, once she made this trip over here, she never returned to France, never to see her family again. Celine Paquette's book that she put together for the 90th anniversary of St. Mary's in 1996 included pictures of the 2 original sisters. On the left is Sister Aline de Saint Laurent, and on the right, Sister Saint Edgard. It also has a whole lot of other information in here, which we will see. It included a letter from my cousin, Sister Rosina Béchard, who was provincial supervisor at the time. And the book also included a photo, lots of photos, but this one here is of Father Francois Xavier Chagnon, who was instrumental in getting the sisters here. He is buried in front of the church next to the Champlain monument. And here's that former Dr. Hackett office and the various configurations of the convent and the school. We're going to read from the 1906 portion of this because it's very enlightening. The daughters accepted Reverend Francois Xavier Chagnon's invitation to reopen the parochial school, which had been in the charge of the late Narcisse Ponchel St. Maxim's until 1904. In September, Sister Aline de Saint Laurent and Sister Saint Edgard left her newly founded convent in Newport, Vermont, to devote their lives to the education of Champlain youth. Additional aid being required, Sister Gerard Magella also came to lend a helping hand until the arrival of the sisters appointed for this new foundation. On October 28th, they had Sister Therese de Saint Marie, Sister Paul de la Providence, Sister Saint Joseph, and Sister Joseph Emmanuel arrived in Champlain. They were warmly welcomed by Father Chagnon and many kind benefactors. The beginnings of this enterprise was marked by untold sufferings and hardships. The Champlain archives in the Provincial House in Littleton, New Hampshire, reveal nothing is spared them: mockery, insults, stupidities. The school building is unbelievably poor. One room of 100 square meters holds 60 students, all sitting around the stove. On the windowsills, snow filters in, forming a border some 50 centimeters wide. The state inspector writes in his report, "This is the worst school in the county." The disheartened sisters cry, pray, and work without respite. The sisters' residence is much different. A square building with only bare necessities. On stormy nights, the wind blows through the cracks in the floor and puts out the lamps. Sister St. Joseph puts up a canopy on the staircase landing to serve as her bedroom. To protect herself from the wind and snow, umbrellas are opened, tied together, and immobilized. In 1907, the sisters moved from the original convent on the corner of Church and Cedar Streets to the former Dr. Hackett residence on Main Street. So that first winter was quite devastating, but they did, in the second year, move into Dr. Hackett's residence. And for those of you who don't know, I'll flip back a few pages in the book. This building is now, like St. Mary's Academy and the convent, is gone, but many of us knew it as the meat locker in Champlain. Pampelon Investments was there toward the end, but this was the first Catholic school run by Mr. St. Maxim's in around 1900. So now we'll move on. Sister Bonita did mention earlier about I believe it was her who mentioned that the number of Baychards who attended St. Mary's. Can't tell you how many attended, but in going over the list of high school graduates, they were the number one family with a total of 29 students graduating from St. Mary's named Baychard. Finishing second was LaFontaine with 26. Then came Filion with 16. Favreau with R-E-A-U spelling with 14, plus 2 Favreaus with an R-O spelling. So that's a total of 16 Favreaus. 11 Gays, 10 Babbies, 10 Goolies, 10 Lavalleys, 9 Bedards, and 9 Racines. Also, when we were doing that initial visit with the sisters, we were just finishing up the St. Mary's Bazaar, and this lady here, Sister Mary Joseph, it's a picture of her in 1967. That's just about the time when she was getting the first ever St. Mary's Bazaar organized. Sister Mary Joseph is well recognized as the one who spearheaded, came up with the idea of a bazaar, and helped the community in pulling it off. So the whole community owes a lot to her, because the St. Mary's Bazaar is more than just something for the parish. It's something for the entire community. The booklet that we put together in 2006 for the 100th anniversary included not an updated, but an old picture, a senior picture of Rosina Baychard, again from Coopersville, and my first cousin and a one-time superior of the sisters. This book, I'm sure, along with Celine's book from 1996, should be available to view at her museum, the Samuel D. Champlain Museum. And there's lots of pictures in here and lots of stories, and we tried to follow along on the ideas she had. It includes a picture we got showing the first Catholic church in Champlain, which was located very near where the current church is located. And my guess is the that first building that the nuns slept in 1906 was very close to that location. I believe it was called on the corner of Cedar and Church Street. And we'll close with a look at the emblem of St. Mary's Academy. And all for the glory of God, which was written on every paper that every student handed in. So again, if you want to learn more about the history of the St. Mary's, stop into Celine Paquette's museum when she's open, Samuel D. Champlain Museum, at the by the bridge at the corner of River Street, Elm Street, and Oak Street. And I'm sure you can peruse through the books at that point, along with all the other history that she has there. So, our congratulations to the Daughters of the Charity of the Sacred Heart for their 200 years, and our well wishes to the sisters who are going around and sharing their memories and thoughts with the various parishes where they serve, the various communities.